Hi, hey, hi, it's me, your Void, and I'm coming to you from the editing booth. First and foremost, I apologize for the noise in the background. I turned on the dishwasher and then sat down to edit, and then I realized I never filmed an intro to this video, let alone an outro. So that's what I'm doing right now. It's Pride Month. I read Pride books. If you want to know more about the books I planned on reading for this month, I made a TBR video. I deviated from the TBR quite a lot because I did indeed take it slower than the past couple of months with my reading. So in order to be done on time, I switched some of these reads out for novellas. Sorry, not sorry. So yeah, I hand you over to past me talking about the books I read this month. See you in a bit. We are back with another walkie intro because the dog is gonna pee. Ain't that right? Yeah. I come to you from a walkie update because I listen to audiobooks when I walk the dog, and I finished Network Effect by Martha Wells, which is the fifth one, book in the Murderbot series. And this one is the first actual full-length novella in the Murderbot Diaries. And I really enjoyed it, like the rest of the Murderbot Diaries. People say that the story structure these novellas follow doesn't translate well into the full-length novel. I disagree. I full-heartedly disagree. The way the Murderbot Diaries are told is part of its charm. So I didn't mind that just being stretched and made longer, and it worked. It worked for so many reasons, because in this book we follow a whole new set of characters, and because it's a book and not a novella, we actually get time to get to know these characters, which is really cool. Contrast that to All Systems Red, where we meet a vast cast of characters, and then we, in the subsequent novellas, meet them over and over and over again, so we have time to get to know these. But in the second or third novella, I don't quite remember, but one of these novellas follows a new cast of characters, a smaller one, but still a new cast of characters, and we don't have time to get to know them because we only have like 150 pages with them, and they never show up again. So from that novella, that was like kind of a letdown because we never meet them again. But this being a full-length novel, we actually have time to get to know these characters, which was kind of nice. Again, I don't think this being a full-length novel, but with the same story structure and narration as the novellas, did anything bad to it. I liked it. I very much enjoyed it. Big fan of the relationship between Art/Perry and Murderbot, even though Murderbot doesn't want to call it a relationship, which, come on, they are basically dating at this point. By the end of this novel, Art basically asked Murderbot to move in with it. Technically, given that Art is a ship, it asked Murderbot to move in to it, not in with it. Kind of complicated. I really enjoyed it. There is this one thing that was a bit confusing, because at one point Murderbot kind of clones its consciousness, and there are like these intersections that are like spliced in between chapters, and at first I was confused, but then at the end it all unravels and you realize what's happening. So it's confusing while it's happening, but then once it unravels, everything makes sense. It's just, you have to trust the process for a hot second there. But yeah, I very much enjoyed that, and it's just like the novellas. Like the pacing is on point, the narration is on point, everything is on point. It's just basically two novellas glued into one. The story is one coherent story, and I have to say, as someone, like, I listened to Murderbot Diary 2, 3, and 4 back to back. Same feeling with the novel. Like, listening to these novellas back to back is the same feeling as listening to the full-length novel, so there is no difference for me. And I very much enjoyed it. I gave this one 4 stars as well, and I'm looking forward to the next installment. I'm also watching the show Murderbot from Apple TV, and oh my god, it's so funny. If you enjoy the novellas, go watch the show. Is it like the novella? No, but I think it's still good. Go watch it. Apparently, the thing that I'm doing now is to give you updates on my reading when I'm going to make myself some matcha, because, okay, cool, this is the thing we're doing now. Okay, where to put you? Toaster! Let's... You're leaning against my toaster now, so you have to live with that. Okay, cool. So, what have I read that I need to make an update? I finished 2 short stories, the first one being Blood is Another Word for Hunger by Rivers Solomon. And in that one, we follow a girl who is a slave in the south, and she, at the beginning of the short story, kills her owners, and she kills 3 of them. There are 3 of her owners, and she kills all of them, and she kills them with so much anger in her heart that the other world feels this rippling through. And the whole story is like, she took 3 lives, and that sacrifice, so to speak, plus her anger enables the other world to send 3 people back. So she took 3 lives, now she's birthing 3 lives, but they are basically grown people. They're not really her ancestors, but she takes these 3 lives and then births 3 people who have been wronged similar to her, and she's birthing them, these 3 people, and they start to live at this house where she was a slave, and then they just keep on killing people, and she keeps on birthing people until they have like a miniature army, and they take revenge on the village next door basically, until she has enough, and she basically rebirths herself in a same/similar way so they could all be together. The ending is hard to explain, but it's a very powerful thing. It is very much focused on the rage of this one person, this one girl, and how much this rage can change things, how it can be channeled into a group action. And I think that was kind of fitting considering the news going around the world these days. There's not much more I can say about it. It is a short story. It's like 20 pages or something, but it's very impactful. And I like reading that. The story itself is not necessarily queer, but it is written by Rivers Solomon, and Rivers Solomon is an intersex person. So it still counts for me wanting to read nothing but pride books this month. And I enjoy that very much. You are now leaning against the sugar because this is a much more functioning angle than whatever we had before. The second short story I read was The Shape of My Name by Nino. I forgot the last name. And that's also just like a 20-page thing. Again, it's a short story about a trans guy who travels through time to basically express his feelings towards his mother who abandoned him. It's very hard to explain that one because it doesn't make a lot of sense as long as you don't read it. There is not even a real premise to it. It's just very much a snapshot, just that the snapshot happens over like, I think, the course of 170 years or something. I don't know. The main gist is that we follow this guy as he is talking about his own life, basically, and how he was born at that one point in time, and how his mom was always kind of weird towards him, and the weird relationship he had towards his own name. And then later on he figures out, because his mom tells him, hey, we are actually time travelers, that's why shit is weird, because we literally jump back, like our timelines are non-linear. We jump back and forth, and that is our lives. And I decided to go linear when I met your dad. And then the guy is introduced to the time traveling thing and starts time traveling. And then the mom, shortly after he starts time traveling, the mom abandons him and travels into exile and leaves him behind with all of these questions about their family, about the time traveling thing. His dad then just commits suicide, and he's just like so angry about not knowing what's going on because his mom disappeared before he could understand what's going on. But throughout this, he's also explaining how he not only started to learn and to understand how his family exists in this non-linear thing, but he also started to learn who he himself is, a trans guy, and then he transitioned. We basically follow him going through this transition, while at the same time we follow him going through his own life to explain his mom. And then by the end of it, we travel all the way back to the beginning of the short story, because he travels all the way back to the beginning of, like, to the point where the weirdness in his life became present in his mind. I can't really explain it. I'm explaining it very bad, but it's a good read. It is very much a snapshot, and it feels like a letter the author wrote to their own mother, kind of. It's expressing this rage about a mother that doesn't care about her child. It's very much this, why didn't you notice me? Why didn't you explain it to me? Why didn't you acknowledge my own thoughts and feelings? And in the beginning it reads like the main character is resenting his mother. But then by the end, I think he himself learns over the course of his travels that he has to forgive his mom because he now understands how complicated shit was. But he needed to find himself and the shape of his own name before he could go to his mom and explain to him, because the biggest issue he had was that he didn't know his own name. And it's such a beautifully written experience. I recommend you pick it up. It's only 22 pages, so you can read that on your lunch break, basically. And it's deeply moving in a certain kind of way. So I really appreciated that. I really like that one. And it features a trans character, so we are reading queer. I finished another book, namely Raising the Sun by Aaron Hawke, which is a romance thing that is following, like, it's part of a series that is written by multiple authors. They joined together in this project and they each wrote one story according to a tarot card, and Raising the Sun is following the Sun card, because of course. In this novel we follow Isaac, and Isaac is a florist and he has a flower shop, and his flower shop is very much struggling, and because his flower shop is struggling, he himself is very much struggling. His brother kind of tricks him into going into a magic shop. He himself is a skeptic, but his brother is very much into the whole thing, and he tricks him into going to a magic shop where a weird guy behind the counter is just handing him a spell, and Isaac is like, yeah, whatever. And then he goes home and he's like, at this point it couldn't hurt, so whatever. He doesn't expect anything to happen, but then he accidentally summons Amadeus, and Amadeus is a phoenix demon, and Amadeus is like, yeah, I'm now bound to you, and Isaac is like, what the fuck? And then they are stuck together because of the spell. Amadeus is only allowed to leave once the wish, like the deepest desire of Isaac, is fulfilled, and this deepest desire is to be successful. But also the magician said, okay, this spell will not stop until a lesson is learned. Very cryptic, I know. And neither of them knows what lesson that is. But of course it's like a magic shop and blah blah blah, so it's like the moral of the story, basically. So these two are stuck together, and over the course of the novel, this ominous lesson is learned, in fact, and these two eventually fall in love together, and the flower shop is saved and blah. I did not really enjoy it. I didn't dislike it. I didn't fully dislike it. It's a solid read. But there is a thing that I did not like, and that is that our main character, Isaac, is a virgin. That in itself, not a problem. The problem I'm having is that everything in his life is going to shit until Amadeus manages to get him out of his shell enough that he accepts some bonking. When Amadeus is first summoned, he's like, ooh, that's a sexy little human. He's like a clean soul and I want to corrupt him. He's just doing demon things, right? And he's flirting and he's basically running around naked in the apartment and stuff. Like he desperately wants to tempt this man into doing something that he deems is dirty. Cool. At one point, Isaac decides, okay, let's do it. And then they do it and it's cool. And that is the moment where everything goes well for Isaac. I know sexual healing is a thing, but the way it is written makes it seem like all of his self-confidence issues, like all of Isaac's issues that are all rooted in his confidence and the lack thereof, are solved the minute he starts having sex. And that's kind of iffy because it is like framed as if all of his issues came from the fact that he never bonged anyone. And then all it takes for him to get better is to bong someone. And that's, I don't know how to feel about that. It's giving icky. The relationship itself is kind of cute because Amadeus is installing a confidence into Isaac beyond the bonking, but the bonking is like the catalyst that gives Isaac the drive to figure shit out, and then Amadeus is reassuring his confidence, like, yes, you know how to do that. Yes, you are good at what you're doing. But it all starts at that one point, right? And at the same time, Isaac is like, well, you don't have to murder my neighbor. You can just tell him that you don't like what he's doing. Like, he's basically calming Amadeus down and gives him a new purpose in life, because Amadeus only agrees to stick around after the whole thing because he was bored down in hell, and now he has a new project to play around with. But then he realizes there's more to life than just bonking and torture, and that's where they kind of like help each other out until they fit together, and then we have a cute happy ending and they stay together for the rest of eternity, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, that one thing, that catalyst, is kind of icky to me. Again, it's a solid read, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people will enjoy it, but for me, that one point was executed in a way that could have been better. The idea behind it isn't even that bad. It's just the way it was executed and framed, the whole context around it, kind of misses the mark, if that makes sense. So I gave that 3 stars. Also, cock-blocking cats, amazing. Yes. I cut my hair. Nice of you to notice. This is going to be a pacey update. I finished another book. This one is called The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nino. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. It's a short little novella where we follow a priest, a cleric kind of. They are like not of a religious order. They are more like a historian slash chronicler, something like that. And they go to this kind of abandoned mansion, palace kind of thing to record things that are around or happened there, because this palace was where the Empress of Salt and Fortune was living while she was in exile, and she then like planned this overthrowing of the government and took the throne for herself, blah blah blah. And we follow this cleric who is trying to discover this, because now her daughter is going to be on the throne, and this area is not off limits anymore. It was off limits before for some reason. So we follow this cleric going there, recording things, and there this cleric meets a lady who has lived there, and this old lady starts telling the cleric what happened while the Empress was living there, because she was actually one of her like servants, I guess, and then later on friend and confidant. And it was a cute story, I have to say that. It was a bit not disjointed, but kind of disjointed, because we are jumping back and forth between the present, where she, the cleric, is recording things they find inside this palace, and what the old lady they met there is doing in the meantime. And then the lady dives into these short stories about what happened at certain points while the Empress was living there. But it's not a cohesive narrative necessarily. It's usually she, the cleric, finds something, and then Rabbit, the old lady, shows up, sees what she found, and that is sparking a memory, and the old lady starts telling them the story of something connected to what she found. And it's solid. It was a good novella. I liked it. It's just I wanted more. The story that is set in the past, where we followed the Empress, was so much more intriguing than anything happening in the present, but every time, but we never really dove into things. It was just very surface level interactions and explanations of things. But that is both a negative and a positive, because we only get those screenshots, basically, these snapshots of things that happened in the past. The rest is up to your imagination. There are huge time jumps between each of these stories that Rabbit is telling, and she never goes back to explain what's happening in the space between story A and story B. So you kind of have to retroactively connect the dots yourself, which weaves such a great tapestry. And the fact that Rabbit, every time she finishes one of her stories, asks Chi, "Do you understand?" And she says, "No, I don't, but I'm sure I will if you keep telling me those stories." It's just like hammering home the fact that you are supposed to not get it until you get it. And that reveal was kind of cool. The whole journey through this novella was actually kind of cool. I wanted more. Good thing there are like 5 or 6 more of these novellas, and I will definitely continue with those, because yes, they were amazing. I just finished filming another video, so I thought to myself to just keep going, because last night I finished another book, which is The Sunbearer Trials by Aiden Thomas. Unpopular opinion, I didn't like it. I thought it was incredibly boring. As I was bored from the get-go, but I was willing to give it a shot, because both Kirsty from K-Beth Bookish and Levy from the Chaos Archives and a bunch of other people say this is a great book, so I was willing to sit through it longer than I should have. I finished it because good friends love this book. So I was like, I'm still going to finish it. I'm going to see it through. But if it weren't for them, I probably would have DNF'd before I hit the 50% mark. And that should tell you pretty much everything you need to know about my feelings about this book. It was incredibly boring. Even when things happened, I was not entertained at all. Theo, the main character, is insufferable. The way he deals with Aurelio is sending me derogatory. Yeah, Aurelio started to ignore him, but Theo is behaving as if as if he tried to murder him when they were 8 years old. Aurelio started to go to a school where he isn't allowed to leave, and Theo behaves as if Aurelio tried to kill him, his mother, and his cow for some reason. So he's a little bitch, and he's also whiny as fuck. Like, I did not like him. I did not like him at all. I mean, I understand his rage for being put in these deadly trials as someone who hadn't and who didn't even get an ounce of training, especially when 8 out of those 10 competitors have been drilled to survive this since they were 7 years old. I get that he's angry, but dude, don't be a bitch about it. Like, he was literally a Karen. Aurelio at one point was like, let me help you because I have been trained in these things and you haven't. So let me at least help you train a little bit so that you don't die right away. And he's like, I can do it on my own. No, you can't! Accept some help, bitch! And I didn't like Zio. Zio was just a crybaby for no reason, and Auristella was a solid character. Was she a bitch? Yes, but at least she was a solid character. Ocelot is being made out to be this super powerful bully, and then they don't do anything for the rest of the book. Like, they do something for the first trial, and then they are just boring for the rest of it, which is so stupid in my opinion. All the other characters I didn't really bother. Like, the only I at some point I didn't even keep track on who is who. I know that Marino is the water guy because of his name, but Atsi, Daisy, I lost track of all of them, and I couldn't care to learn what they were and like what kind of the powers they had and who was their parents and shit. I couldn't be bothered. The trials were extremely boring. I have to say, the book got cool for about half a chapter right at the end. Right at the end, there was like half a chapter where I was like, oh shit, this is cool. And then it went away right away. Ah! But I know I'm bad-mouthing this book. It's a solid read. It is just very much not what I like. It is very much not a book for me. I mean, it has so many hallmarks that it hits. Like, it has so many things that it hits that I should enjoy, but it also has so many things that I just don't enjoy in books. The food descriptions, the fact that it is YA, it's always a 50-50 with me and YA. This one I would actually say is more for like younger YA audiences, even though it hits some very dark and hard-hitting topics. So that is a miss. I'm not the biggest fan of young YA. What else? Competition. I am not a fan of reading about competitions. I know everyone loves them. I just am like, no, I don't like competition. I hated the Bundesjugendspiele, which is a competition that kids in school are being forced into for like 10 years every year in school in Germany. Everyone hates them. We still have to do them every year, so I hate competitions. Participating in them and reading about them, even though I'm a very competitive person. I just don't like competitions. This one was a solid miss for me. I am not saying it's a bad book. I am not saying it's a bad book at all. It's a solid read, and I can see people enjoy it, and I can see why people enjoy it. It is just not for me at all. I thought it was boring until those like 10 pages right at the end, and I will not be picking up the second book because people say it's even slower than the first one, and a lot of people have told me if you don't like the characters in book 1, you will absolutely despise them in book 2, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that to me. I know my limits. I'm not doing that. So I'm sad to say this one got only 2 stars from me. I will keep this though on my shelves. I will keep this on my shelves for one simple reason. It was a gift from Kirsty, and she gifted this to me because I helped out with the earliest rounds of the Adventure Marathon. So this one has a memory attached to it. Multiple memories attached to it actually. So I will be keeping this on my shelves, but don't expect me to read me read this, like, at all. It's going to be shelf candy from now on. I love the cover, though. Like, the cover is, it's a good-looking cover. I can say that much. It's a good-looking cover. I have to talk to you about a beautiful, cozy story about a little island nation consisting of 10 islands, and how a bunch of guys are fighting over who is becoming king. Yeah, I read Dickfight Island Volume 1 by Reibun, and the concept definitely delivered. We follow a bunch of guys, and they, according to their culture, they have to fight out, they have to fight over who's allowed to be king. Like, instead of having a voting system every 4 years, they just dick it out. And I mean that quite literally, because what they do, it's called the, Battle of the Pythons, and they put on these beautiful cod pieces, and they try to make each other finish in ecstasy. And if you do that first in your fight, then you are out, then you lose. Like, they are fighting, they are actively fighting, but the goal is not to incapacitate the other one. The goal is to, it's so dumb. All of these characters are incredibly gay for each other, even though they say it's not. They are just strong warriors, and in their culture, this is where I was so fascinated by this, because I studied cultural anthropology, and this makes sense. All of this makes sense from like a scientific standpoint, because they have this culture where you become a man at one point in your life, and you earn the right to wear your butt out in the open, and that is normal for them. Like, every grown man is wearing their butt out in the open. And you have these guys who train for 4 years for this specific competition to become king, and they take it so serious. For them, it is not sexual. For them, it is literally their culture of war, which is so ridiculous, but it works. And the premise of this specific volume is like, why are we following this competition right now, is because one of these competitors went overseas to study. Like, his island is very rich, so they had the funds to send him into an international university, so he went there and he studied. But because his culture of like wearing his butt out and doing all this dickery, that is very much an isolated cultural thing to his island. So everyone out in the world is like, okay, this is kind of weird. And he learned that it's actually very gay. And his roommate thinks he's cute, and they have a crush on each other, and they then enter into a relationship. And this dude, like, his roommate is like, this is a relationship we have. And this dude is like, no, this is like, this is just what I do at home. So they have this cultural exchange thing, and they make a deal. Hey, you become my training partner for 4 years, and then I go to this competition, and I fight in this competition, and once that is done, that is when I basically move out from the island, and we can be together in like a real couple way. There is no reason for this to be as good as it is. This is like Sex Wizards. You have a premise that is so wacky and so smutty that it should not be good in terms of plot, but it is. Why? How am I finding these incredibly smutty things with the wackiest premise that then turn out to have a good plot and solid world building? How am I doing this? What kind of wizardry is this? And the best part is, all of these training partners throughout the competition realize they are actually gay for each other. So it's so wholesome. And they are all just baffled by the concept of the prostate, because they think making someone else finish first is involving the hand or even the mouth in the front. And no one ever thought about the back door until this guy comes back with his secret technique he learned at university and overseas, because he had a roommate who was gay and knew about the wonders of gay intercourse and how it works on a biological level. I am baffled by how good this is. This also portrays some of the healthiest gay relationships I have ever seen in a manga. This is ridiculously good in so many ways. It should not be this good. It has no right to be this good. Yet here we are. What the fuck? Please excuse the snot face and the snot voice, because I was out late last night and I literally just crawled out of bed. I finished Botanical Daughter by Noah Medlock. This is basically a modernized version of Frankenstein, and Frankenstein's monster is not made up of many corpses, but of many plants. And it's literally Frankenstein, but make it plants, make it vegetarian, so to speak. And instead of one Dr. Frankenstein, we have two, and the gay subtext has
has been removed and made into gay above text. In this one, we have two very gay gentlemen, and they live in this greenhouse because being gay in the Victorian times is illegal. So they just sequestered themselves away into the greenhouse and just live there as a happy couple. Although happy is not necessarily the word I would use. They do not necessarily have a healthy relationship. They could do with some couples therapy, but it works for them and they are happy. So I'm not going into that, but it's not a healthy relationship they have. One of them is a botanist. He owns this greenhouse and he loves his plants. And the other one is a taxidermist and he makes like all these little creatures down in the basement. They don't vibe with each other at all. Like the fact that they are even in love with each other is kind of a mystery to me, but it kind of works. It's really funny. And they have all the staff that is only allowed on the land outside of the greenhouse. Inside the greenhouse, no one is allowed. Until one day, their laundry girl, who is usually coming up to the door, picks up the laundry and drops the clean one off, and then she leaves again. Her dad is like, she needs to do something more because like he's struggling for money. So he's like, hey, do you need like a housemaid? And one of the boys is like, yeah, sure. So she starts living with them in this greenhouse at one point. Well, at first she's just a housemaid and she's cleaning up in the greenhouse and she's noticing things. And at that point, these two idiots have the idea of making this botanical daughter. First, it's the botanist who starts with that idea, and the taxidermist is completely against it because what do you mean you want to create a person out of mushrooms and flowers? But then they do it, and then this thing kind of evolves, like it grows up, so to speak, so it needs someone to take care of it, and that's when they ask their new housemaid, hey, do you want to be a live-in governance? So she moves into the greenhouse as well, and she's dealing with this plant person, and weird shit just keeps happening to these people. It's not just that this plant person is like evolving and doing shit they weren't expecting, it's also the people around them. There's a guy who's like, I want to see your greenhouse, and is like very desperate to get the botanist's attention because they were ex-lovers. So that is going on, and then the botanical daughter, she was planted in a body. They needed a dead body to have like the soil, so to speak, for this thing, the soil and the basically blueprints for the plants to go in. So they excavated a fresh corpse that was actually the best friend of their laundry girl slash housemaid slash governance. So they have to keep that a secret. Then they find out that this best friend was murdered by her dad because she was gay. Like she was gay for the housemaid. The housemaid and her dad have a weird relationship. So people constantly come up to the greenhouse, and all the while the mental stability of these two guys in the greenhouse is deteriorating. The botanist, first obsessed with his plant creation, grows paranoid that someone will steal his idea or that this mycelium flower amalgamation is going to get out and infect like the whole area around them. And he is pulling the taxidermist into it by like, this is basically our daughter. We never thought we could have a daughter, so let's have a daughter. That's how he pulls the taxidermist in it, away from this you are insane thing. And then the taxidermist is like, yes, this is our daughter. And the botanist realizes, oh shit, no, this is some dangerous plant creature. And the botanist grows obsessed with keeping everyone inside and not letting them out, not letting anyone see. And the taxidermist is like, no, this is our family. Like he literally imagines, this is our daughter. We can't just treat her like an experiment. It's all over the place. And the housemaid falls in love with the plant creature. The ending sent me places. Like this has, strangely, it has a happy ending. A lot of people die in this. Strangely, it has a happy ending. I very much appreciated it. I love this. It is very old schooly writing. Like the atmosphere in this is top notch. It's actually the best thing in this. Like some passages are written in a way where I could smell the moss, where I could feel the humidity. It's really good. I would also say this is a horror read, yes, but you should read it in summer. Not only does this book take place during summer, but the way it is written with the atmosphere very much fits the summer. And I say that as someone who has read it in summer. So that definitely enhanced the reading of this one. It's very much giving Victorian England writing. So be aware there is some, it's not purple prose, but it's like high brain cell count prose. You don't necessarily understand it if you read this for just shits and giggles. That's what I mean. It's sophisticated, you might say. And it's surprisingly gory at times. I'm pretty sure Simon, the taxidermist, is autistic, and he deals with his emotions in a very interesting way. Like at one point he's like, I don't want to think about this anymore. So he takes one of his animal cadavers and just extracts the brain, puts it in a box, and puts the box on a shelf. And then he's like, okay, now I don't have to think about it anymore. And that is how he deals with all his emotions. It is disgusting. It's a really good book, and it's not horror in a shocking way. It's very slow. It's very slow moving. So the horror in this is actually like when you see how these relationships evolve and how certain mental things just start to deteriorate. That is the horror of it all. That all of this is clashing in it. So it's definitely not like a high horror thrill thing. No, this is a almost cozy horror, I would say, which is a very weird thing to call it, but it's very much that. So yeah, I like this one. I gave it 4 stars, and I am now going to drink my matcha and die in peace. Light. I finished a novella last night by Sierra Simone called Sanguine, which is a 55-page long thing about a vampire who's on vacation, and then he gets interrupted by a vampire hunter who just shows up at his house. There's not a lot going on, like not more going on. It very much feels like a thing that Sierra Simone felt like writing, so she wrote it, and then she realized, oh, this is actually not bad. So she threw it into the editing mill and then published it. And I mean, fair, yeah, why not? If you know me, you know that I love Sierra Simone and that I love vampires. Shut up, Discord. So having Sierra Simone write about vampires gave me exactly what I wanted. There's not much more to say about this. Well, there's one more thing I can say about it. I want more from these 2 idiots. Like, I want a whole backstory on both of these characters, and I want to see where they are going. I kind of hope that Sierra Simone at one point goes back to this little itty-bitty short story and is like, no, I need to make this a full-length novel, and then we get a full-length novel and not just 55 pages, because it did move a little fast. From the point where they meet to their first date to then saying, I want to spend my life with you, that was a bit quick. Like, it was believable up until they said, I'm planning my life with you. That was like, that was quick. And I am not someone who frowns at insta-lovey novellas. Like, I love Cleo Evans, and they fall in love right the second they meet. So I am not frowning at that. It's just, it came out of nowhere, kind of. So that's like one critique point, but I loved it. Gave it 4 stars. I really want more of that shit. Vampires! I finished Andrew Joseph White's The Spirit Bears Its Teeth. Andrew Joseph White did it again with writing a perfectly atmospheric historical horror mystery kind of, and it's so good. This is actually my favorite Andrew Joseph White now. Just perfection. In this one, we follow a trans guy named Silas, and he lives in a society where people with purple eyes can see through the veil, like they can spot ghosts and shit. And it is a very detrimental British society, because of course, and they basically declared that women with purple eyes, they can't touch the veil because they can't handle it on a mentally they just can't handle that. Only men can handle it. But they are basically used as breeding stock to get purple-eyed children in the hopes of having a boy that can then move on and be rich and shit. And you can imagine being a trans guy in Victorian England doesn't really check out, so Silas is being used as breeding stock by his own parents. They basically want to sell him to the highest bidder for their own political standing and shit. And Silas is also autistic, so he is exhibiting a lot of behaviors that are unseemly. They actually label him as an imbecile, and only his brother is treating him as a trans guy, is only realizing, okay, things are going on, that like he acknowledges Silas and his behaviors and doesn't like ridicule him. And Silas has a hyperfixation on becoming a surgeon, and his brother is a surgeon, so his brother is like secretly teaching him. And then one day Silas steals the identity of another guy who is about to be indoctrinated kind of into this society of speakers, like the purple-eyed men who can see the veil and shit. And he wants to get a certain branding so he can just fuck off and live his life, and everything goes wrong at that ceremony, and Silas is labeled a woman with veil sickness, meaning his mind broke due to contact with the veil, and he gets basically locked up in an asylum for purple-eyed people. And there he meets a lot of other girls who are also afflicted by this veil sickness, and shit happens, and ghosts are involved and everything. It's like all the other Andrew Joseph Whites. It's viscerally honest in the way it is horror, but the horror is also rooted in actual things. The horror doesn't necessarily come from the ghosts. It's coming from the real life things. And that is just, this is not a third plane. I'm moving inside. So the things that are the horrific ones is the way
these people treat the seemingly afflicted girls and Silas. The horror comes from the way they pretend to cure the veil sickness. The horror comes from what it does to these children. None of these are actual adults. The horror comes from how the society has build itself to make this possible in the first place. The horror in this one is very much the people and the society and less the ghosts. The ghosts are just there, and the ghosts are basically the final result of how people are treated in the society, specifically women, specifically people with a mental illness or like something like autism. And you can be thrown into this asylum for any number of reasons. Silas is thrown in there because he presented as male during the ceremony and then turned out to be not male. He's trans, so the society is like, nah. We have a girl in here that is decidedly lesbian, and she was in love with another girl in here. There was a girl she was just a feminist, and she had an opinion, so she was thrown in here. Like stuff like that gets thrown into this, not bedlam, but bedlam for people with violet eyes. Bedlam is mentioned as well. There's a lot of medical experimentation going on in here, and that is all in there. But for example, the most horrific thing that could happen to Silas, like Silas is explaining that the one thing he does not want to happen is that he has to become pregnant. Being married off and having to be pregnant, that is the worst thing in Silas's mind that can happen to him. Dying? Fine. He is actually fantasizing about giving himself a hysterectomy. He is willing to cut into himself and remove an organ without anesthesia. That is not what scares him. What scares him is that he has uterus and that it could be used to make him pregnant. That is what he's scared of. And then there's another layer to it because Silas is already promised to someone who is the son of the head of this speaker society. And turns out that this son is also trans, and that's the first time that Silas meets someone who is like him, at least in part, when he meets Daphne. And the groundskeeper is also autistic. So that's basically the worst thing that ever happened to Silas being sent to this place is the one thing that helps him find friends that understand him. That is basically the setup, and then Silas is trying to find out what happened to certain ghosts in this place. Like, he finds ghosts and strange things, and then he is just so inquisitive that he is not trying to get out of this, but he wants to know what is happening in this place, and that's where the murder mystery aspect of things comes in. It's a solid read. The atmosphere is amazing. The conclusion to the story, so cathartic. The characters, so good. And the way this specific book handles abuse and what it can do to a person's mind in terms of fighting against it, in terms of accepting things, like the psychology aspect in this book is just so damn good. I gave this one 4 stars as well. Like most other things I read this month, it's just so good. And with having read all 3 of Andrew Joseph White's YA books, I cannot wait to get my hands on You Were Not Supposed to Be Human, because it's Andrew Joseph White dipping into adult horror, and it's also circling around the whole concept of pregnancy. If it's like this is basically the sanitized version. I don't want to call it sanitized because it's definitely not sanitized, but this is like the dimmed down version of what I expect to happen in You're Not Supposed to Be Human, because that is about pregnancy. That is about a trans guy who actually becomes pregnant against his will, and it's also done by worm aliens. I just know that's going to be so disgusting. Totally not me just like 10 seconds later than the intro clip. Totally not. It's been a month between the intro clip and this now outro. Totally. Believe me, I'm not lying. That's the sound you're hearing. That's a new round of dishwasher. We have a lot of dishes in this house, as you can see. A lot of dishes. So I read 9 things this month, all of them queer, like head to toe queer, as it should be. Pretty much enjoyed everything I read, except like 1 or 2 things, basically. And I will now continue editing this video so you can see this in the first place. This is kind of meta, isn't it? If you made it this far into the video, let me know what your favorite read of the month was, and if you don't want to talk to me at all, leave a rainbow flag emoji down in the comments, and I guess I will see you in the next video. Bye!